Hi, and welcome to this episode of John's Model Kit Review. In today's fun model kit comparison video, we'll be taking a look at three 1/48 scale Messerschmitt Bf 109 kits. The three kits that we'll look at in this video are the classic Fujimi Bf 109 G through K. This kit was originally released in 1972. The next kit we'll look at is the ICM Bf 109F. This kit debuted in 2006. My particular boxing of this kit was released by Revell. It's the only kit in this video that has the option to open up the engine compartment. The final kit we'll look at is Eduard's Bf 109F4. The boxing that I have is their weekend edition kit. Eduard's Bf 109F was originally released in 2016. In this video, we'll talk about the features that each kit has. We'll also talk about the surface detailing and the fit of the major parts on the kit. We'll also look at the accuracy of the kit itself. We'll also talk about the decals in the kit, and I'll give my conclusions at the end. Right up front, I'm really happy with the way that each of these kits turned out. I enjoyed the build process on each of these kits, and they each presented challenges in their own way. Without further ado, let's look at the kits. First up is the Fujimi Messerschmitt ME109. The box actually lists this kit as a G through K. In reality, you can only accurately model the Bf 109G, and this kit has several options, so you can do a short tail G or a high tail G. You can also do the G2 without the cannon bumps on the front of the fuselage, or the later G6 that had the cannon bumps. Looking at the detailing on the interior of the kit, there's actually quite a few parts that make up the interior of the Fujimi Bf 109. I added a set of Eduard pre-painted seatbelts to dress up what can be seen through the cockpit canopy. I also used the metal wire from a twist tie to replicate the yellow fuel line that's found in the Bf 109. Looking at the features on this kit does not include any posable control surfaces. Everything is molded in the closed up position, which is more accurate for in-flight, but not really accurate for a Bf 109 on the ground. One of the highlights of this kit is the mix of engraved panel lines and very delicate raised rivet detail. This is honestly some of the finest raised rivet detail I've ever seen, and it's incredibly impressive on a kit that's over 50 years old. In this photo, we can see two upgrades that I made to the kit. The first one is adding a little strip of plastic around the end of the machine gun barrels and the upper cowl. The second thing I did was add a tropical air filter from an Academy Bf 109. I actually really like the texture on this. One thing to note, the air scoop that's provided in the kit is a little bit oversized and a little bit too long, so it's not 100% accurate. Another accuracy issue that I found in my boxing was that the end of the fuselage was too big around for the prop spinner that's included with the kit, and so there was a noticeable step. What I've done to kind of hide this is to sand down the front of the fuselage just a little bit so that it tapers to where the engine cowl meets the prop spinner. On the real aircraft, there's not that much of a step here. Looking at the detail on the landing gear and in the wheel wells, the landing gear itself is a little bit cartoonish with very overdone detail on the gear legs. The gear doors themselves are not shaped like the gear doors on the other kits either. Although the wheel wells themselves are boxed in, there is no wheel well detail to speak of. For the markings on this aircraft, I wanted to model this Bf 109 G2. To do this, I use a mix of the kit supplied decals as well as leftover decals from other Bf 109 kits to come up with the exact markings. The next kit we'll look at is the ICM Revell Bf 109 F2 and 4. My boxing is Revell kit number 04656. Looking at the features that are offered with this kit, it comes with the posable slats on the front of the wings. It also comes with posable flaps as well as a posable rudder, and this is the only kit that provides a complete engine and allows you to pose the engine cowl in the open position. The detail on the interior of the Revell ICM Bf 109 is marginal. As with the Fujimi kit, I had to add a wire fuel line to the interior of the kit, and I also added the pre-painted Eduard photo etch seat belts, and those really dress up what you can see through the very clear canopy on this kit. The surface detail on the exterior of this kit is represented by engraved panel line detail, and honestly, the engraved detail on the exterior is quite minimal. And a lot of the detail that you see in the photos is actually detail that I added with pastels to enhance the look of the finished kit. Another thing that's visible in this picture is the somewhat grainy exterior texture of the kit, as well as the somewhat soft engraving of the panel lines and rivet details. The surface detailing on the rudder of the kit is somewhat exaggerated, and the fabric detail is represented by starkly raised lines. I wanted to model this aircraft with the engine cowl closed. Unfortunately, this kit was really not designed to be displayed with the engine cowl closed. In order to do that, I had to fabricate a central hinge on the top of the engine cowl. Additionally, the assembly of the nose area of this aircraft was very fiddly, and it was difficult to get everything to line up properly and then to stay together once it was glued in place. As with the Fujimi kit, there's a little bit of a step between the front of the fuselage and the prop spinner. Since I wanted to pose the radiator outlet flaps open, I had to cut the lower section where it joins to the rear of the radiator and re-glue that in a little bit different position. Looking at the detail on the landing gear and in the wheel wells, the landing gear legs themselves are somewhat simplified. There's not much detail there. The wheel wells themselves do have some rib detail in them, but no real detail where the landing gear legs themselves fold in. And that brings us to the Eduard Bf 109 F4 Weekend Edition kit. This is Eduard part number 84146. Looking at the features of the Eduard Bf 109F, this kit has the posable slats on the fronts of the wings. It also has posable flaps and posable radiator outlet flaps on the back of the wings. It has posable elevators and a posable rudder. The surface detailing on the Eduard Bf 109F is represented by very fine engraved panel lines and very petite engraved rivet detail. Looking at the detail on the interior of the Eduard kit, I built the interior here straight out of the box. The prominent fuel line was included, as were some very nice decal seat belts, which I used. Looking at the detail on the landing gear, there is very nice detail on the landing gear legs themselves. There's also very nice detail on the gear doors, both on the inner surface and the outer surface. The wheel wells themselves have very nice rib detail. They also have fabric detail on the covers that cover the inside of the wheel openings. They also have detail on the portion where the landing gear legs retract. One thing that could be added to the Weekend Edition kit pertains to the tropical air filter. Looking at this picture, you can see that the tropical air filter is missing the two stays that attach the front of it to the side of the engine cover. I plan on adding these two stays with fine plastic strip. The detail on the tropical air filter itself is provided by a decal. As far as overall shape accuracy goes, the Eduard Bf 109 F Series and G Series kits are by far the most accurate Bf 109s currently on the market in 1/48 scale. It also has the most accurate details. They build beautifully right out of the box, and if you haven't built one of these kits, they are a true joy to build, provided you're comfortable dealing with some finely detailed small parts. So there you have it. We've looked at 3 different Bf 109 kits from 3 different eras. Not surprisingly, the newest kit is the best in terms of accuracy and in terms of detail. With that said, are these 2 other kits still worth building? I often find it kind of humorous when modelers refuse to build anything but the latest and greatest. In my experience, I have learned so much building older kits. And I also find it much easier to justify trying out a new technique or experimenting with a new finish on a kit that costs me significantly less than I do taking risks on a much more expensive kit. Well, I'd love to know what you guys think. If any of you out there think there is value in building kits that are no longer the latest and greatest, please let me know in the comment section below. If you're a builder that only builds the latest and greatest, I'd love to hear from you as well. As always, I hope you found this video entertaining and informative, and until next time, model on.